The winter came early that year. Cold air slipped through the cracks of old walls and thin windows, turning small rooms into places where breath could be seen. In one of those rooms lived a little girl and her mother. The room was not big. It had one bed, a small table, and a stove that worked only when it wanted to. Still, the girl believed it was home because her mother was there. Every morning, the mother woke up before the sun. She moved quietly so she would not wake her child. She washed her face with cold water, tied her hair back, and pulled on the same worn coat. The coat was too thin for winter, but it was all she had. Before leaving, she always looked at her daughter sleeping. She stood there for a few seconds longer than needed, as if she was gathering strength just by looking at her. The girl was small for her age, with hair that never stayed neat no matter how much her mother tried. She went to school with shoes that were a little too tight and a bag that had been repaired many times. She never complained. She thought this was how life was for everyone. At school, she listened when other children talked about gifts, warm houses, and big meals. She stayed quiet and smiled, pretending she understood. When December arrived, the streets filled with lights and noise. Shops put up decorations, and people talked about holidays. The girl's eyes followed every shining thing she saw. She loved the idea of Christmas, not because of gifts, but because everyone seemed kinder during this time. People smiled more. They spoke softer. Even her mother tried harder to smile. At night, the girl noticed things that worried her. Her mother sat at the table, counting small coins again and again. Sometimes she sighed. Sometimes she rubbed her eyes like they hurt. Other times, she stared at the wall, lost in thoughts she never shared. The girl would pretend to be asleep, but she watched through half-closed eyes. One night, she heard her mother crying. Not loud crying, but the quiet kind that hurts more. The girl hugged her pillow tightly. She wanted to get up and say something, but she did not know what. She was afraid that if she spoke, her mother would stop crying and pretend everything was fine. So she stayed still and listened, feeling a heavy feeling she did not understand. The next day at school, the teacher asked everyone to write about what they wanted for Christmas. Children quickly started writing about toys, phones, bikes, and trips. The girl held her pencil, but did not move it. She did not want toys. She wanted her mother to stop looking so tired. She wanted her mother to laugh like she used to. Before life became so hard, that evening, while sitting on the floor near the stove, the girl remembered something she had learned from school and from stories. Santa, the man who helped children, the man who brought joy, the man who listened to wishes. Her heart felt warm thinking about it. Maybe Santa could help her mom. That night, using an old notebook with torn pages, the girl slowly wrote a letter. Her handwriting was messy, but her words were clear. She did not ask for toys or candy. She wrote that her mom worked very hard. She wrote that her mom was sad and tired. She asked Santa to please help her mother. She ended the letter with a small drawing of a heart. She folded the paper carefully like it was something very precious. She did not know where to put it. There was no fireplace, no tree. Finally, she placed it inside her school bag, believing Santa would find it somehow. Days passed. The cold grew stronger. The mother came home later each night. Her hands were red and rough. She smiled at her daughter, but the smile did not reach her eyes. The girl tried to help by cleaning, heating water, and staying quiet. She thought being quiet might make life easier. One afternoon, the girl came home from school and found her mother sitting on the bed, holding her head in her hands. The girl felt scared. She asked if everything was okay. The mother quickly wiped her face and said she was fine, just tired. The girl nodded, but she knew it was not the truth. That night, the girl took out her letter again. She read it softly to herself, hoping Santa was listening. She believed with all her heart. She believed because believing was the only thing she had. Outside, snow began to fall. The city moved fast around them, but inside that small room, life stood still. Neither the girl nor her mother knew that this simple letter, written with pure love, was about to travel far beyond that room. Neither of them knew that the past, which had been buried for years, was slowly waking up. For now, The girl slept peacefully, dreaming of a day when her mother would smile without pain, and the mother watched her child sleep, whispering a promise she did not know how to keep. Christmas was coming, and with it, truth that would change everything. The next morning began like many others, with cold air and quiet steps. The girl woke up before her alarm because her feet were cold. She pulled the blanket tighter and listened. The stove was not on yet. Her mother had already left for work. This was happening more often now. The girl got dressed slowly and prepared for school. As she picked up her bag, she felt the folded paper inside. The letter. She pressed it gently, as if touching it would make it stronger. She whispered, a small hope under her breath, then stepped outside into the cold street at school. The noise felt louder than usual. Children talked about decorations, songs, and gifts. Some teachers wore red scarves and smiled more, but the girl felt distracted. She kept thinking about her mother sitting alone in the room late at night, counting coins that never seemed enough. After school, she walked home with slow steps. She liked to take the long way because it gave her time to think. When she reached the building, she noticed a man standing near the entrance. He was well-dressed, not like most people around there. He looked lost, as if he did not belong. The girl lowered her head and passed by him. She did not think much of it. People came and went all the time. Inside, she climbed the stairs and unlocked the door. The room felt colder than usual. She placed her bag down and went to light the stove, but it refused to work. She waited, sitting on the bed, hugging her knees. She looked around the room. Everything looked the same, but something felt different. She did not know why. Later that evening, her mother came home later than usual. Her face looked pale and her steps were slow. She tried to smile, but the smile broke halfway. The girl ran to her and hugged her tightly. The mother hugged back, holding her child a little longer than usual. They ate a simple meal in silence. The girl wanted to talk but did not know what to say. The mother kept looking at the door, like she was expecting something or someone that night. After the girl fell asleep, the mother sat alone at the table. She opened a small box she kept hidden under the bed. Inside were old papers and a worn photo. She touched the photo gently, then closed the box quickly, as if afraid of her own memories. Elsewhere in the city, the letter had begun its journey. The girl did not know how it happened. She never knew that her bag had been taken aside earlier that day during a routine check at school. A teacher, trying to identify a lost notebook, found the letter tucked between pages. At first, she planned to return it, but when she read the words, her heart tightened. She did not throw it away. She showed it to another teacher, then to the school office. No one laughed. No one ignored it. Someone suggested it might help to show it to a local charity that often supported families during winter. The letter reached hands that were used to reading reports. It's not wishes. Hands that signed papers and made decisions. When the man read the words written in uneven lines, something inside him shifted. He read it again, slowly. He had wealth, influence, and comfort. But the letter reminded him of something he had lost long ago. A feeling of care without reason. Love without conditions. He asked questions. Quiet questions. Where did the letter come from? Who wrote it? The answers were simple. A little girl. A struggling family. A mother doing her best. The man asked for the address. Not out of curiosity, but out of something deeper. Something he could not name. Meanwhile, the girl woke up in the middle of the night. She had dreamed that her mother was calling her name from far away. She sat up, heart beating fast. The room was dark and quiet. Her mother was asleep beside her. The girl lay back down but could not sleep. She felt a strange mix of fear and hope. She did not know why. The next day passed slowly. The mother left early again. The girl went to school, her mind heavy. She wondered if Santa had read her letter yet. That afternoon, there was a knock on the door. The girl opened it slowly. A woman stood outside holding a folder. She smiled gently and asked if the girl's mother was home. The girl shook her head. The woman said she would return later. When the mother came home and heard about the visit, her face changed. All color drained from it. She sat down heavily and asked many questions. What did the woman look like? What did she say? The girl answered honestly, confused by her mother's reaction. That night, the mother could not sleep. She walked around the room, her thoughts racing. The past she had tried to bury was knocking on her door. She remembered running away with nothing but hope and fear. She remembered promises broken and doors closed. She remembered choosing silence because truth felt too dangerous. The girl watched her mother quietly. She wanted to ask what was wrong, but she stayed silent. She believed adults always had reasons children could not understand. Outside, snow continued to fall. Lights decorated the streets. People laughed and hurried home. Inside that small room, two hearts waited for something they could not yet see far away. The man placed the letter carefully into his coat pocket. He looked out of his window at the city below. He did not know what he would find when he reached that address. But he knew one thing. Some wishes were not meant to be ignored, and somewhere between the girl's hope and her mother's fear, a truth was slowly moving closer, step by step. The mother could not sleep that night. The knock at the door, the questions, and the memory of the letter had stirred something inside her she had not faced in many years. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped tightly, trying to steady her breathing. Outside, the wind moved the bare branches against the window, tapping softly, almost like whispers reminding her of the past. She remembered a time when her life had been very different. She had grown up in a home that should have been safe, but was not. The people who were supposed to care for her had failed, leaving her with fear instead of comfort. She learned quickly that trust had limits, and that silence was often the only protection. When she was young, she had dreamed of happy homes and laughter. But those dreams were stolen before she could hold them close. She ran away as soon as she could, carrying nothing but herself in a small bag with a few personal items. She worked odd jobs and moved from place to place, always trying to stay invisible, always trying to stay safe. She never spoke of the people who had hurt her, because every word felt dangerous, like it could reach them even from far away. Then came the hardest decision of her life. She was young and alone and found herself pregnant. The thought of bringing a child into the world scared her, terrified her even. But she also knew she could not let anyone else raise her child, not in a world that had been so cruel to her. She promised herself that she would protect this child with everything she had, no matter what it cost. She remembered the night she held her daughter for the first time. Her body ached, her hands shook, but when she looked at the tiny face, something inside her softened. She whispered promises that no one else would ever know, vows that this child would know love even when the world seemed cold. From that moment, everything she did was for the child. Every hardship, every sacrifice, every moment of pain was endured silently so that her daughter could grow with hope. Years passed. The mother moved to the city, taking a small apartment and working tirelessly to survive. She was careful to hide the past, to make sure no one could uncover the life she had fled. She smiled when necessary, laughed when required, but always carried the weight of the secrets she had chosen to keep. She thought that the past was buried safely, unreachable, like a book locked in a drawer. But now, the knock on the door and the questions from the visitor had shaken that illusion. The past was stirring, not loud, not threatening, but persistent. The mother felt a mix of fear and regret. She had protected her child for years, but the world seemed determined to remind her that some truths do not stay hidden forever. Meanwhile, the girl lived in a world of simple hope. She still believed in Santa, still trusted that wishes could reach the sky. She noticed her mother's tension and tried in small ways to ease it. She drew pictures, tidied the apartment, and offered hugs more than usual. She did not know what was wrong, but she felt that something had changed. Something was coming, and she could sense it even if she did not understand it. At school, the girl remained quiet about her own feelings. Children asked about gifts, but she stayed silent. She did not want toys or candy. Her heart was set on something bigger, something she could not fully name. She wanted her mother to smile without worry. She wanted her mother to feel light again, like she used to when the girl was very small. As the days passed, the visitor returned asking more questions, checking details, and trying to piece together the story behind the letter. the mother's tension grew. She spoke less, watched her daughter more, and moved carefully around the apartment. Every sound felt louder. Every knock on the door set her heart racing. She was afraid that the past she had hidden would reach her daughter. Then one evening, a small envelope arrived in the mail. It was unusual, simple, with no return address. The mother hesitated, her hands trembling as she opened it. Inside were words that made her heart sink. Someone knew something, and they were reaching out gently, not with anger, not with accusation, but with questions that demanded answers. They knew her past, or at least pieces of it. The mother felt a wave of panic. She wanted to throw the envelope away, to pretend it did not exist, but she could not. Something told her she needed to face it. She spent that night sorting memories. Faces she had hoped to forget came back, each one carrying a weight she had tried to leave behind. She remembered the fear of being alone, the pain of betrayal, and the deep determination that had carried her through every hardship. She realized that for years she had been running, not from her child, not from love, but from the memory she thought would destroy them both. The girl noticed her mother's restlessness. She did not understand the reasons, but she stayed close, offering silent comfort. She put her hand on her mother's arm while she cooked. She leaned close while her mother cleaned, and she smiled often, hoping to bring light into the heavy atmosphere. The mother noticed these gestures and felt a strange warmth. Her daughter's trust, pure and unshakable, was a reminder of why she had survived all those years. Finally, the mother decided to take action. She could not continue hiding. She could not pretend the past would stay buried. She would face it, slowly and carefully. To protect her daughter and to reclaim a part of herself she had almost lost, she began by writing letters of her own. Not for anyone to read yet, not for the world, but for herself. She wrote about her childhood, about the choices she had made, and about the moments that had defined her life. The act of writing brought relief, and the memories that had been heavy with fear now carried a weight that was more manageable. She realized that acknowledging the past was not weakness, but a form of strength. The girl watched her mother work in silence. She could feel the tension changing, a subtle shift that even a child could notice. The apartment, once heavy with unspoken worries, began to feel lighter. It was still cold, still small, but hope was beginning to return. One afternoon, while cleaning near the window, the girl noticed the same well-dressed man from days before walking past their building. He did not stop or knock. He only looked up, as if searching for something. The girl felt a flutter in her chest. She did not know why, but she sensed that he was connected to the letter. To the hope she had sent into the world, the mother noticed her daughter's gaze and asked what she was looking at. The girl shrugged, but spoke softly, telling her mother about the man and how he seemed to be looking for something. The mother's stomach tightened. She did not know whether to feel fear or relief. The past and present were meeting in ways she could not yet understand. That night, they sat together on the bed, close but not speaking. The mother felt the weight of years and decisions pressing on her, but also the light of her daughter's love and hope. The girl rested her head against her mother's shoulder, believing that Santa was listening and that something good was coming. Far away, the man held the mother's letter again. He thought about the child, about the mother, and about the quiet strength that shone through the words. He did not know the full story yet, but he felt compelled to help. Not for recognition, not for reward, but because something deep inside told him it was the right thing to do. The night passed quietly, snow falling softly outside. Inside the apartment, the mother and daughter slept side by side. One carried the burden of the past, the other the simplicity of hope. And somewhere between their breaths and dreams, the world began to prepare for a meeting that would change everything. The truth was moving closer, and with it, the possibility of healing and new beginnings. The winter air was colder than usual, carrying the smell of snow and distant fires. Inside the small apartment, the mother moved quietly, her mind restless. The letters, the visitor, the man who had read the child's letter, all of it pressed on her chest like a weight she could not shake. She tried to keep her composure for her daughter, but every step she took felt heavy with memories she had long avoided. The girl, meanwhile, noticed the tension. She did not understand all the details, but she sensed that change was near. She continued to help where she could, tidying the apartment, preparing simple meals, and offering hugs. Her small acts of care were like tiny lights in a room that had felt dark for too long. One afternoon, there was a louder knock on the door than before. The mother's heart raced. She moved to open it, hoping it was just another neighbor, but instead, she found the same well-dressed man standing there, holding a folder. He looked at her with gentle eyes, not judgmental, not threatening. He spoke softly, introducing himself and mentioning the letter her daughter had written. The mother's face paled. She had hoped that the past would not be exposed so soon. The girl appeared behind her mother, curious and slightly nervous. She watched the man carefully. Something in his eyes made her feel safe, though she did not understand why. He asked if they could talk inside, and the mother hesitated. She wanted to refuse to protect her daughter from the unknown. Something in the man's demeanor suggested he meant no harm. They all sat at the small table. The man began to speak, explaining that he had read the girl's letter and was moved by it. He asked about their lives, gently, without pressure. The mother answered cautiously, giving only small pieces of information, afraid that the full truth might be dangerous. She spoke of struggles, of work, of winter nights, careful to avoid revealing the secrets she had carried for so long. The man listened quietly. After some time, he asked about the mother's past. The mother's hands shook, her eyes darting to the child. She had never spoken of these things, never intended to. But the man's calm, non-judgmental tone made it harder to continue hiding. The girl, unaware of the details, watched her mother. Feeling both curiosity and concern, the mother took a deep breath and began to speak, slowly at first. She told them about her childhood, about the home she had fled, about the dangers she had faced. She spoke of the people she trusted who had betrayed her, of the decisions she had made to survive. Her voice trembled, but she continued. She spoke of the night she ran away and of the fear she had carried when she learned she was going to be a mother. The man did not interrupt. He only nodded occasionally, encouraging her silently. The girl listened, her eyes wide. She did not understand everything, but she sensed the weight of what her mother had endured. She realized that the woman who had always seemed strong was stronger than she had ever imagined. Surviving hardships that would have broken many others, tears fell silently down the mother's cheeks. She told them how she had worked tirelessly to protect her child, how she had hidden the past to give her daughter a life with hope, not fear. She confessed the guilt she carried, the sleepless nights, and the constant worry that her past might catch up to them. The girl reached out, holding her mother's hand, her own eyes brimming with tears. The man gently placed the folder on the table. Inside were documents and notes he had collected. He explained that he wanted to help, not by giving money or promises, but by ensuring that the mother and daughter could have safety and support. He spoke of community programs, housing options, and job assistance, everything arranged quietly and respectfully. He told them he understood the mother's need for privacy and that he would protect it. For the first time in years, the mother felt a cautious relief. Someone understood, someone believed in their story, and someone offered help without judgment. She realized that she had been carrying her fears alone for too long, and it was not weakness to accept kindness. The girl, sensing the shift in her mother, felt a hope she had not dared to feel before. She squeezed her mother's hand, silently promising that they would face this together. Days passed with subtle changes. The mother began to engage with the man's suggestions. She met with advisors who treated her with respect and dignity, helping her explore new opportunities without exposing her to past dangers. She started to feel that a future, one without constant fear, was possible. The girl noticed the change in her mother's demeanor. Smiles returned, small at first, but genuine. Laughter came more easily, filling the apartment with warmth. Yet, the past was never completely gone. Occasionally, memories would surface, triggered by a sound or a glance. The mother would pause, her face tightening for a moment before she regained her composure. Each time the girl would reach out, gently reminding her mother that they were together and that nothing from the past could harm them while they stayed united. One evening, as snow fell heavily outside, the mother and daughter sat near the window. watching the world turn white. The girl whispered to her mother about Santa, about wishes, and about hope. The mother smiled, tears in her eyes, realizing that even as an adult, her daughter's belief in goodness and miracles was powerful. It was a reminder that love, resilience, and trust could bring light even in the darkest times. The man visited once more before Christmas, assuring that plans were in place. He did not stay long, respecting their space. Before leaving, he spoke softly to the mother, telling her that she had shown extraordinary strength and that her daughter's innocence and love were gifts that deserved protection and nurturing. He left quietly, leaving behind a sense of security and hope. That night, the mother tucked her daughter into bed, holding her a little longer than usual. She whispered promises that life would improve, that the hardships they had faced would not define them, and that together they could face anything. The girl, believing in the power of her wish and the kindness of the stranger, closed her eyes with a light heart. Outside, the city slept under the soft glow of streetlights and falling snow. Inside the small apartment, a mother and daughter found a moment of peace. The past had been confronted, the present was being rebuilt, and the future, once uncertain, now held the possibility of joy. The girl dreamed of Santa hearing her plea, but deep down, she knew that the real miracle was not a man in red, but her mother's courage and the unexpected kindness that had entered their lives just in time. Christmas approached, carrying a sense of excitement and quiet anticipation. Outside, the city shimmered under lights and snow, and inside the small apartment, a mother and daughter prepared in their own humble way. The mother had spent the days making the place as warm and bright as possible, stringing a few lights around the window and arranging the small decorations they had managed to gather. It was simple, but it was theirs, and for the first time in years, it felt joyful. The girl ran around the room, helping to hang decorations, her eyes shining with excitement. She could feel the magic of the season, but her joy was not for toys or presents. It was for the hope that had grown between her and her mother, for the feeling that perhaps life was finally changing for the better. The mother watched her daughter, her heart swelling with love and pride. She had fought for this life, endured so much, and now she could see the light in her child's eyes. She had not needed a miracle from Santa, because she had given her daughter something just as powerful: safety, love, and belief in good things. That afternoon, there was a knock on the door. The mother felt a familiar tension, but when she opened it, she found the well-dressed man standing there, holding a small bag. He smiled gently, placing it on the table. Inside were supplies, a few small gifts, and a note that read, "For the two of you, with hope and care." The mother felt tears prick her eyes. The gesture was not grand, but it was thoughtful, showing respect and understanding. The girl eagerly opened the bag, finding a few simple toys and treats. She hugged the man tightly, whispering her thanks. He knelt down, smiling, and said that he was only happy to help. That evening, they sat together by the window, looking at the snow. The mother told her daughter stories of the past, carefully sharing pieces of her history. The girl listened, understanding a little more about why her mother had been so protective and cautious all these years. She realized that her mother's strength had kept them both safe, and that their love had been the real miracle all along. As the night deepened, the girl held her mother's hand and whispered softly, "Santa must have heard me." The mother smiled, pressing her cheek against her daughter's hair. She realized that Santa, if he existed, had worked through the kindness of people who had touched their lives quietly and respectfully. It was not about magic or gifts. It was about care, protection, and understanding. Over the next few days, life began to settle into a new rhythm. The mother engaged more confidently with community support, finding work that offered stability without fear. She and her daughter shared laughter more freely, filling their apartment with warmth. The girl continued to help, but now the burden of worry had lifted from her small shoulders. On Christmas morning, they woke to a quiet city blanketed in white. The girl ran to the window, pressing her hands against the glass and smiling at the snow. Her mother joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. They exchanged a glance that carried years of struggle, sacrifice, and now relief. They understood that they had survived the hardest trials, and that their bond was unbreakable. They opened the small gifts together. The toys and treats were enjoyed, but their true happiness came from the sense of security and love that now filled their lives. The mother noticed that the girl's belief in goodness had grown stronger, and she realized that even in the darkest times, hope could flourish when nurtured by love. Later, the man visited once more, quietly observing the joy and comfort that now existed in the apartment. He did not need to intervene further. His purpose had been to guide, to offer support, and to ensure that the mother and daughter could continue building their life with dignity. Seeing them happy, he knew his mission was complete. The girl asked him if Santa would ever come again, smiling innocently. He chuckled and said that Santa came in many forms. Sometimes through the actions of others, sometimes through courage and love, just like the mother had shown every day. The girl's eyes sparkled with understanding. She realized that the real miracles were not always visible, but they were felt deeply. As night fell and snow continued to blanket the city, the mother tucked her daughter into bed. She whispered promises of protection and love, of safety and hope. She told her that no matter what happened, they would face it together. The girl drifted to sleep with a heart full of warmth and belief, feeling the magic not of Santa, but of a mother's unwavering love. The mother stayed by the window for a while. Looking at the quiet streets and the falling snow, she thought about the past, the struggles, and the nights she had feared the future. She realized that every hardship had led her here, to a life where love and hope prevailed. She understood that the courage to face the truth, to protect her child, and to accept kindness when it came had been her greatest strength. The snow outside continued to fall silently, covering the city in white. Inside, two hearts slept peacefully, connected by trust, love, and shared resilience. The girl's wish had been answered in a way she did not expect. Not through a magical figure in red, but through the courage of her mother and the quiet kindness of others. That Christmas, the mother and daughter experienced a miracle in its purest form, the transformation of fear into hope, struggle into safety, and silence into shared understanding. They had each other, they had love, and they had the beginning of a future that was theirs to shape together. And for the girl, the message was clear. Sometimes, the real magic is the people who love you and stand by you, especially when life seems impossible. The days after Christmas brought a quiet calm to the small apartment. But life was far from ordinary. The mother and daughter had begun to feel the gentle rhythm of stability, yet new challenges slowly emerged, as they always do. Each morning, the girl woke early, pulling the thin blanket around her shoulders, and looked out at the winter sky. Snow still lingered on the streets, but there was a warmth in her heart that she had never felt before. She knew that her mother was more at ease, that hope was no longer a fragile thing they carried in secret. The mother had started working with a small organization that provided support for families like theirs. She spent her days helping others while also learning how to navigate the system to secure better opportunities for herself and her daughter. It was exhausting work, but she felt alive, and for the first time in years, she experienced a sense of purpose beyond mere survival. The apartment, once filled with quiet tension, now resonated with laughter, conversations, and occasional small arguments that reminded them of normal life. The girl took a special interest in her mother's work. She would sit nearby as the mother prepared documents or planned schedules, asking questions and offering suggestions. Sometimes she drew pictures to leave on the desk, little reminders of joy and simplicity amidst the complexity of adult life. Her presence was a constant source of comfort and motivation for her mother. And in return, the mother made time to listen to the girl's stories about school, friends, and dreams. One day, while walking home from school, the girl noticed a group of children gathered around a small, poorly dressed boy. They were teasing him, laughing at his torn coat and threadbare shoes. The girl's heart tightened. She remembered her own childhood, the humiliation and the fear that had once seemed impossible to escape. Without hesitation, she ran to him, offering her hand and a kind word. The boy looked up, hesitant, and then slowly smiled, a light appearing in his eyes. She held his hand as they walked together, feeling a connection that went beyond words. When they reached his building, she waved goodbye, a sense of pride and purpose swelling inside her. That evening, she told her mother about the boy. The mother listened carefully, her face softening with pride. She told her daughter that small acts of kindness could change the world, one heart at a time. The girl understood in a way only children can, that helping others was not about reward or recognition, it was about compassion, courage, and standing up for what was right. Meanwhile, the man who had initially helped them stayed in touch, quietly checking in on their progress. He never intruded, always respectful of their privacy, but he offered guidance when needed. He had become a silent guardian of sorts, a reminder that sometimes help came from unexpected sources, and that good people existed even in a world that often seemed harsh. One afternoon, as the mother was sorting through papers at the kitchen table, she received a call from an old acquaintance. At first, fear gripped her heart. She had always been careful to avoid people from her past, knowing the danger of exposure. But the voice on the other end was kind, familiar, and spoke of reconciliation. The acquaintance wanted to mend old misunderstandings, to offer support, to acknowledge the mistakes that had caused pain so long ago. The mother felt a rush of emotions: relief, doubt, fear, and hope all at once. She decided to take a cautious step forward, opening a door she had kept closed for decades. The conversation lasted for hours. The mother learned that some people from her past had changed, that forgiveness was possible, and that some bridges could be rebuilt. She shared carefully, cautiously, her story, her struggles, and the love she carried for her daughter. The acquaintance listened, acknowledged, and offered assistance in practical ways, helping the mother feel that life could be more than surviving, it could be living. That evening, the girl noticed her mother's change in demeanor. She was calmer, her smiles more frequent, her laughter easier. The girl felt a sense of security she had never known. Understanding that her mother was no longer alone in facing the challenges of life, she hugged her mother tightly, whispering, "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" The mother nodded, tears in her eyes, and whispered back, "Yes, my love, we are." Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the mother began to make plans for the future. She found a stable job that allowed her to save for better housing. She enrolled in courses to improve her skills, determined to create a life of independence and dignity. The girl continued to thrive at school, excelling in her studies and forming friendships based on mutual respect and kindness. They were building a life that was stronger than fear, richer than mere survival, and filled with hope. One snowy afternoon, the girl spotted a woman struggling with groceries near the entrance of their building. Without hesitation, she ran to help, carrying some bags inside. The woman smiled gratefully, touched by the child's initiative. The girl felt proud and happy, knowing that her small act of kindness made a difference. The mother, observing from the window, felt a deep sense of fulfillment, realizing that the values she had instilled in her daughter were already shaping the world around them. That night, as they sat together by the window, sipping warm tea, the mother reflected on the journey they had taken. The hardships, the fear, the sleepless nights they had all led to this point, a place of connection, resilience, and hope. She realized that the real miracle was not a magical figure delivering gifts, but the courage, love, and support that they had found in each other and in the kindness of others. The girl, feeling her mother's presence and warmth, whispered again about Santa. The mother laughed softly, holding her close. She explained that sometimes Santa came in the form of people who listened, who helped, who showed kindness and understanding. The girl nodded, her heart full, understanding in her own way that the magic of life was in human connection, love, and the courage to face the world together. Over the following months, they continued to grow and heal. The mother became more confident, more secure in her decisions, and more willing to accept help when it came. The girl flourished, her innocence tempered with compassion and awareness. They faced small challenges along the way, as all families do, but they faced them together, stronger than ever. One evening, as the city sparkled with holiday lights again, The mother and daughter walked hand in hand through the snow-covered streets. The girl laughed, pointing at the decorations, and the mother felt a lightness she had not known in years. They paused near a small tree, adorned with ornaments and lights, and the girl whispered softly, "Thank you, Mom, for everything." The mother hugged her tightly, tears in her eyes, and whispered back, "Thank you for teaching me hope, my love. We made it together." The night ended with them returning to their apartment, a place now filled with warmth, love, and the promise of the future. The girl placed her head on her mother's shoulder, feeling safe and cherished. The mother looked out the window, watching the snow fall gently on the city, knowing that their journey had transformed them, that the struggles of the past had given way to a life of hope, love, and resilience. In the quiet of that winter night, mother and daughter slept peacefully, their hearts full of gratitude, their spirits buoyed by the understanding that miracles were not always magical or immediate. They were found in courage, kindness, and unwavering love. And as the snow covered the city in a soft blanket, the mother and daughter embraced the gift of a new life, one built not on fear or struggle, but on hope, love, and the simple truth that together they could overcome anything.